Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over how to document your code really well and really fast. In fact, it's so easy that we're going to go over both how to do this in Swift and in Kotlin. So stay tuned. Let's learn together. Now, if you're looking for a specific way to document a very specific thing, then check the timestamps below in the description and you should be able to get to where you need to go. So we're going to start off with Swift. Now, the first thing we want to go ahead and do is we want a method that we can go ahead and document. So our method, let's pretend we're really bad at naming stuff, and our method is going to be called does a thing. And this method takes an integer, and then it's going to take a second integer, and it's going to return a double. Cool. And now this method is going to take the square root of the power of a squared plus the power of b squared. Cool. And now it's saying that you can see here that we need to replace this with a double. So we can do that. In fact, let's just make these double types here. So we will make both of these a double. Cool. All right, so now we've got this function. It does a thing, and if you remember your math from school, then you may be familiar with what this function does, but it's not named well. It's not super clear exactly what's going on here, and so documentation is one of the things that can help us with this particular scenario. So now the easiest way that we can document this is we can just let ChatGPT handle this for us and document this on our behalf. So selecting the code that we want to document, we can just hover over our ChatGPT button and then click Document. Nice. So as you can see here, it figured out that we need to calculate the length of a hypotenuse for a right triangle, which is the Pythagorean theorem. And it's using DocC under the hood in order to display this. So what would that look like if you were trying to look at this function in a real-life scenario? So if we just, for example, add an onAppear modifier here, and then we call our doesAthing function, we can see that doesAthing calculates the length of the hypotenuse, takes a double, and returns a double. And then if we wanted to even option click to check out what this thing does in a little bit more detail, we can see the docs that ChatGPT just wrote on our behalf, and we can see that it calculates the length, and it takes the parameter, which is the length of one side, b, the length of the other side, and it returns the value of the hypotenuse, and then gives us a quick little example. Now, that was a really easy way to get some documentation for a function. But what if we wanted to document something like a view? So let's give that a shot, and let's just take our basic content view here, and we'll do the same thing. We'll click our ChatGPT button, and we'll ask it to document our view here. Nice, and as you can see, our AI integration automatically documented this view for us. So again, what we can do is we can come back to the main body of our app. We can option click on this view right here, and then we can actually see the documentation that was just written for us, which is so cool. Now, if you're looking for more ways to document with DocC, you are in luck. The Swift actually has a lot of documentation on how to write documents with DocC, and even Apple's documentation has all been written with DocC, which is really, really cool. And if you're looking for this documentation, don't worry, I'll link to these in the description below. So with that, let's go ahead and let's move over to Kotlin and Android Studio. So the similar situation here. If we had a function, and our function, it was again named by someone who isn't good at naming things, but it is called doesAthing, and it takes a double, and it also takes a second double, and then it returns a double. And now inside of our return here, we are going to take the square root, and we are going to say that we want a dot power, and we want it to the second power, and then we want to say plus b dot power, And the power that we want is to the second power again. Cool. All right, now as you can see, we've got a very similar, very nondescript function. It's not really clear what's going on. So we can highlight this, and Gemini will automatically allow us to document this function on our behalf, which is really, really cool. Nice, and as you can see, it's written not DocC. This is called KDoc when you're in Kotlin. So if you're in Kotlin, it's called KDoc, and these KDoc documents will show up in any IntelliJ editor, and they'll also show up in Android Studio. And if we like it, then we can just go ahead and choose Accept Change. Cool. So now, what would this look like in a real-life scenario where we wanted to see this thing working? We can come up to our function here, and let's just say val test equals does a thing, and we will pass in, let's say 5.0 and 6.0, for example. And now if we just hover over our method, we can actually see the documentation that Gemini just wrote on our behalf. So we can see again our example of it's the Pythagorean theorem, and that A and B are the length of the sides of the triangle, and then it returns the length of the hypotenuse, which is really, really cool. Now that's documenting a function with KDoc, but what about views? So again, we could do the same thing here. We can highlight our view. We can click on the Gemini button and say that we want to document our greeting view here. Nice, and as we can see, it has automatically documented this for us on our behalf. So let's go ahead and let's accept those changes. Cool. All right, and now if we want to see what this looks like, again, we should just be able to hover over our greeting function where it's being called, or our greeting view where it's being called, in our main activity, and as you can see, we've got our documentation right here. Now, similar to DocC with Swift, you can view more information about KDoc inside of Kotlin's documentation here. And again, don't worry, I'll leave a link for this one in the description as well. And with that, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you leave a comment, just be nice about it. That's all I ask. Thanks. Have a great day.